Thank you, President Rochelle, fellow Rotarians and guests. Many of you know David Bobanick, our Executive Director of Harvest Against Hunger. And you probably all read or hopefully read the introduction in our newsletter, so I won't take and cover any of that. But I asked him for a couple juicy tidbits of things that we don't know about him. And one thing we don't know is that after graduating from college, he had an assignment with the U.S. Information Agency, and he was posted on Australia for 2 years. So I can't think of a better place to spend 2 years when you're right out of college doing PR work. So he spent a couple of years in Australia. He traveled back to the U.S. periodically, and a couple times he ended up stopping over here in Seattle. He was an East Coast kind of guy before, but he fell in love with Seattle, and he started his work in the food insecurity area by volunteering at the Cherry Street food bank. And when volunteering there, out in the rain on a rainy day, a little old lady came up who reminded him exactly of his grandmother. And it was just a moving experience at that time. He ended up doing PR work and worked with Northwest Harvest, and ultimately he became our executive director at Harvest Against Hunger and does just a yeoman's work in helping address insecurity. David, over to you.
Great, thanks very much. And yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to the group today about Harvest Against Hunger. One of the things at the beginning here I want to kind of talk about is the fact that this is going to be a slightly unusual presentation from one that we would typically give. So it's not going to be full of pictures and looking at some of the great work we do. This is really meant to be, and I was asked to provide an update on kind of the overall food system in hunger relief system, I should say, in response to COVID-19. So what I'm going to do is start out kind of at a higher level, that is talking about what's happening statewide with some initiatives with a number of our partners. And then I'll drill down into some of the activities that we're doing here at Harvest Against Hunger. And so as many of you know, we are a program of Rotary District 5030, and I'm happy to say we were recertified for another 3-year stint as a district program. So it's really important to us to have that representation both on our board of directors and all of our staff members as Rotarians. But I think one of the things that it does that sets us apart as an organization is it really helps us to do our work through the power of the Rotary network. And for anybody that's been a Rotarian for any length of time, you know that there really is significant power and influence in that Rotary network. And so many of you have been involved with this organization in a number of different ways. And so thank you all for your ongoing support of our work and continued hopeful future support of the work. So with that, I want to talk now a little bit about kind of high-level Harvest Against Hunger and what we do. And this is really, as Stan's a member on our board of directors, he can attest to this, but one of the things that we really try to look at is hunger relief in our work through this lens of providing healthy food to people in need builds healthier communities. And so that's a pretty broad statement because we're also looking at ways that not only can we get food to those in need and healthy food to those in need, but what are the impacts in both the food on the input side, which would be coming from growers and other folks, but also on the output side. Yes, you can provide food, but what does that do? It helps people to maintain their health. It helps kids to learn in school, and a number of other really positive impacts from the work that we're doing here. So some of the key attributes for this organization, I think many of you know, and this is something that we actually landed on through sort of a brand assessment exercise that we went through about 1.5 years ago. And I'm going to talk about, I bring this up now, not necessarily to brag about it, but it also, one of the things that it has set us up to do is really be effective in changing some of the work that we're doing and pivoting pretty quickly in some of the work that we're doing related to COVID-19. So innovative, collaborative, effective, efficient, essential, and nimble. And in these really uncertain times, those are all attributes that we've leaned on pretty heavily to do the work. So Harvest Against Hunger and our core work of getting truckload-sized donations of produce into the hunger relief system. So we work with farmers, we work with packing houses, and then we work with trucking companies to get that food from the field into the hunger relief system so that it can then be distributed out through our food bank partners to millions, literally, of Washingtonians who come into the hunger relief system to get some support at a time of crisis. So our core work continues to be getting those truckload-sized donations. But what we do is there's a lot more to what we do than that. And I'll get into a little bit more of that here shortly. So now let's step over to COVID-19, really just a hunger response update. And so these are two quotes that were in emails or conversations that I've had with folks. So the first one, 50% of our services are going to first-time visitors. That was when I was volunteering at Des Moines Food Bank, just a little bit south of where I live. And, just the fact that a lot of food banks in our area are seeing a remarkable increase in the number of people who are coming for the first time. As COVID-19 hit, it was not a system to get some support at a time of crisis. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of an echo there. 50%. So it's not like there was a slow decline of our economy. It's like our economy hit a brick wall. And so it left people, about a month and 2 months ago now, with no other way to feed their families. So a lot of people came into the hunger relief organizations. And then now hunger relief organizations are seeing people that they haven't seen since the recession. So you had the initial hit of people that were coming into the hunger relief organizations for the first time to get help. And now, subsequently, after a couple of months of unemployment and the downturn of the economy, now people who haven't been needing to come to a hunger relief organization because they've transitioned out are back 10 years later, coming in and needing food help. So, and this is happening at a time when hunger relief organizations are suddenly forced to completely change the model that they use to deliver food. So many hunger relief organizations, so you think about HopeLink and a couple of the other ones in your area, they went to a grocery model, a grocery distribution model. And it was a really effective way to provide food to people and food that people wanted, people needed. It was a respectful way to provide food to those in need. That doesn't work now in the times of COVID and following the COVID protocols. And so a lot of programs had to change literally overnight the way that they were distributing food to people coming into hunger relief organizations. So we'll get into that a little bit, but just a level set of what's happening right now, the initial hit, and now the ongoing increase in need at hunger relief organizations. So Northwest Harvest our partners at Northwest Harvest worked with McKinsey to put together a report and just on hunger relief. So there were some key points and projections that in talking with Thomas, the director of Northwest Harvest, really sort of really jumped out at me. So there's what they anticipate is that there will be a continued high level of service needs in Washington for the next several months. So even as employment opens back up, we're still going to see a tremendous need at hunger relief organizations. So for reference, that greater than 2 million number is a little less than double what we would see. So really significant increases in the level of need. Last year, I think it was 1.15 million. Greater than 2 million is a pretty significant increase, and that's going to be happening over the next several months. So there's also now on top of that, or exacerbating that potentially, are projections of significant need if currently expanded cash assistance and cash equivalent programs time out. So that means expanded SNAP benefits or EBT benefits, the old food stamp program So these programs have been expanded to help people through this time. There's also expanded or extended unemployment that has been helping people. So as those are reduced, there may be that may also impact the number of people who turn to the hunger relief system. And then we're also trying to, and I hesitate to use the term game out, but I think it makes sense to figure out where that supply and demand gap is going to be. And we're anticipating that the peak gap is going to be sometime between August and December. And there's also going to be a capacity gap. So what does that mean? That means the gap between demand at hunger relief organizations and supply of foods that are available is going to peak. And so there looks at a couple of different scenarios and how those might play out. We hope to, so these are estimates as of May. I think we're going to take another run at these in June, and then sort of break it down to the next 2 fiscal quarters. So anyway, that's again, higher level, kind of an overview of what's happening in Washington State. So one of the ways that Washington State is dealing with, the tremendous increased need and all of the upheaval in the hunger relief system is that they put together a food security coordination team. And it's the Washington State Department of Agriculture and the governor's office that pulled this together. It also includes folks from Department of Health, from emergency operations, and it's the state emergency operations, not the county level. Food Lifeline, Northwest Harvest, and Second Harvest in the Northwest. And they're working to implement and develop coordinated support programs. So one of the ways that they're doing that is to develop common meal or common menu meal boxes that are being assembled and then delivered. And so again, I was talking about the fact that hunger relief organizations need to completely change and modify their distribution models. Well, that means that a lot of them are taking what they've asked for is prepackaged food so that their volunteers, limited volunteers, are not forced to sort and resort in close quarters so they can follow COVID protocols. So these common boxes are being assembled. We are assisting on the transportation side of that. So we're helping to, it's actually a little bit more than 4 truckloads as of earlier this week, but we've helped to distribute those truckloads out to programs around the state. So starting at like a Northwest Harvest or a Food Lifeline warehouse and then distributing them out to the lead agencies. We're likely going to see many more loads over the next 2 months of both inbound and outbound for these emergency food boxes. And this is, again, staying at the high level. This is what the Washington Food Security Coordination Team looks like. And I won't read into all of this, but suffice it to say that there are a number of different partners who may not typically work together, who are now learning how to work together, focusing on hunger relief. And it's not perfect, but nothing is perfect when it's thrown together this quickly and with such urgency. But we've been working to continually improve on the processes that are being used. So state agencies are working together to maximize food and nutrition program benefits for low-income people, newly unemployed people. I talked a little bit about that earlier. And then what Northwest Harvest is, WSDA is contracting with those organizations to distribute somewhere between 150,000 and 300,000 of those emergency food boxes. So as you can imagine, that's many truckloads of them. And then also making strategic enhancements to the food assistance programs, including, and there was a conference call earlier this morning with WSDA, including some new programs where they've developed pilots with Charlie's Produce and, of all things, AMI, which provides airline meals. So a lot of folks in the airline industry or those companies in the airline industry that were typically getting the meals, what WSDA did is that they found a pot of, or they identified a pot of money that could be used to pilot test using that AMI system to get prepackaged meals into primarily the meal program side of hunger distribution, hunger relief distribution network. And those Charlie's Produce boxes are, again, something where Charlie's Produce is assembling produce boxes to get them out into the hunger relief system. Both of these programs are getting rave reviews by the hunger relief organizations. So another thing that's a little bit different statewide is that Washington State typically is, there are some large organizations like Northwest Harvest and Food Lifeline and Second Harvest Inland Northwest that work in many counties to distribute products. So Food Lifeline's Western Washington, Northwest Harvest is statewide, and then Second Harvest Inland Northwest is primarily Eastern Washington and a little bit of Central Washington. What's happened now is those three organizations have agreed to divide the state into three different areas so that they can focus distribution models that will have these like food boxes going into each and every county or in each and every food pantry that's serving regardless of where they are in the state. So it doesn't matter if you're distributing in Garfield County or Mason County, it's going to be a similar product that's getting distributed out to hunger relief organizations and ultimately to the people in need in those areas. And those ideal meal boxes, they look like this: canned fruit, vegetables, canned meat, and other things. So that's kind of the baseline. And then on top of that, we're adding produce into the system. So a couple more things related to kind of the statewide effort is that pandemic EBT is something that we are just launching here in Washington State now, and it provides EBT, which is electronic benefits for it. You know, again, it's like the food stamp model for school meals. So a lot of families that qualify for and would have been receiving school meals, especially as we get to the summer months, they don't have those school meals obviously available to them, or they do, but in a limited fashion. And so this new program provides what the equivalent would be to feed a student, and it puts it into their pandemic EBT payments. And so that funding came from federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or the CARES Act. So that gives you a little bit of background about that. And then the USDA is putting food into the system through basically 3 or 4 programs. One is the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which is an ongoing program of USDA, and it buys food basically from producers and growers where markets are soft. And then Trade Mitigation Program was a program that was put in place about 1.5 years ago to offset the negative impacts of some of the tariffs and the impacts that those were having when other countries would then close their sales for exported product from the United States, or focusing on farm products. And then CFAP, perishable food boxes, and this is a new program that provides dairy, meat, and produce boxes, 3 different boxes for the hunger relief system. So put a pin on that, because what that does is it puts a lot of food into the hunger relief system, but it's a lot of food coming into a hunger relief system that doesn't necessarily have the capacity to handle a lot of perishable food product. So I'll come back to that in just a second. So now we're going to go down a level to what we're doing here specifically at Harvest Against Hunger. And I realize I don't have a ton of time left, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. Enhanced core work. So we've done about 15 loads of food in the past few weeks, probably 2-3 weeks. We've done significant amounts of food. We're also providing additional transportation assistance, and we did that for 10 loads fairly recently, probably in the last 1.5 weeks, and we're at about 4,000 miles for those that donated transportation. We're partnering with Washington Trucking Association, engaging trucking support for all of our partners right now. Our AmeriCorps, our Harvest Vista program, we've repositioned AmeriCorps Vista to provide direct service at all of our Harvest Vista sites. And then we're working with Corporation for National and Community Service to determine if some of the $2 billion that is going to be made available in additional funding for them could be used to expand our Harvest Vista program and bring it to scale. And they actually came to us and asked us to provide some sort of a program model for how that might happen. So we're working on that. We'll see over the course of the next couple of weeks where that goes. We've provided 25,000 face masks for food banks. I talked about the fact that hunger relief organizations have had to follow safety protocols, and a big part of that is PPE, personal protective equipment. And so we worked with Seattle 4 Rotary to identify one of their members has a family that through family connections, they own a face mask producing plant in China. And so we were able to get 25,000 face masks in the course of about a 2 or 3 day period, or excuse me, 3 or 5 day period out to the hunger relief system. So that was a really exciting opportunity, and it's something that we'll probably be revisiting here soon. We're expanding support for farmers and food banks, and we do that through our programs like Farm to Food Pantry, King County Farmers Share. We have a new partnership with PCC Community Markets and Neighborhood Farmers Markets to fast track some additional contracts to local farmers. And what that means is PCC and Neighborhood Farmers Markets, PCC wanted to get funding to support farmers through the Neighborhood Farmers Markets and get some of that food into the hunger relief system. They had no idea how to do it, but they were pointed by WSDA to us, where we've been running a Farm to Food Pantry program and the King County Farmers Share for the past several years. So we provided the backbone and all of the processing capacity to make those orders connect between farmers and hunger relief organizations. And then we've also been working on some new legislation being introduced by Representative Schreier to support farmers, and it's going to be based on our Harvest Against Hunger Farm to Food Bank project models. So when it comes to supporting farmers, we do get quotes from farmers when we're talking to them. And I really like this one from Larry Alvarez with Alvarez Farms, and they're over in the Yakima area. So the quote is, "My dad was so excited about this opportunity, started farming just to help other families be able to eat organically without large cost. Truly a great feeling to help food banks and our communities anywhere we can." And now on to some other things. And again, talking about going back to the earlier slide where I showed the attributes of the organization and nimble and able to innovate quickly. This is a really great example of that. So what we've created, we know that there are some real capacity issues in the hunger relief system for dealing with some of the food that's coming in, keeping it safe, keeping it cool in order to get it to distribute it out to people that are coming in. So we've been working with WSDA on refrigerated capacity grants. So these are $2,000 grants. It's like a 3-day turnaround on the grants that go out. There's been a first and a second round of these. The third round opens tomorrow morning. So the total amount of capacity grants that have gone into the system in the last month and a couple of days will be $120,000. And that's $2,000 at a time at a local food bank to help them buy a refrigerator or replace a compressor or something like that. We're working with District 503 on a Rotary Global grant that's going to bring $77,000 roughly of funding to help support refrigerated capacity at a number of hunger relief organizations and other programs here in King County. We're looking to get potential matching funds from King County in negotiations right now on that. And then we also created a capacity assessment. We developed a statewide capacity assessment. And there has been, WSDA took that information from the capacity assessment, and they were able to identify $4.3 million in COVID-19 capacity investment funding. So within, I think it was about a week, we were able to get that capacity assessment out, got the results back, and then that was given to Director Sanderson, WSDA Director Sanderson, to make a point and make a pitch to get the COVID-19 investments. And really quickly, this just came in this morning, so I took a picture of it. Your very generous donations greatly appreciated, supporting our effort to alleviate hunger. Current unanticipated situation finds us feeding nearly 3 times the number of children served during a typical school year. And so it's nice to see that impact that it's having. We're also expanding our logistics partners with a number of different groups, including FEMA Region 10, Washington Trucking Association, Port of Seattle, and helping to newly form a King County Emergency Food Network. And then finally, COVID-19, some of the issues that we're seeing. One is no Harvest Against Hunger work parties. It's driving us crazy, but with social distancing, we can't do those. Probably until July, we're hoping that we'll be able to have the next ones. So continuing need for PPE, we're working with Washington State EOC, but I think we're probably going to need to do another round of investing to get some masks out, face masks out into the system. Continuing capacity and transportation challenges at the secondary and tertiary distribution sites. So you think about those small scale food banks, particularly in rural areas, where they really are limited with the amount of storage capacity they have for refrigerated items. And then recognizing capacity issues, not only at the food bank level, but also where clients are receiving some of these larger CFAT boxes of perishable foods. So only so much room at home is one of the comments we heard from a client. Okay, and finally, what can you do? So one of the questions that we get asked when we're talking to folks is, well, what can I do? And so support your local food bank is first and foremost. So donate funding. If you're able to, volunteer. We know that National Guard has been placed out at hunger relief organizations, but we also know that soon enough, that is going to end. So those National Guard folks won't be available. So we're going to be ramping up the need for volunteers soon. So there's a 211 information that you can find out, or you can go to our webpage and look at the COVID-19 update page, and there's a link there where you can find out how to volunteer. But please think about your local food bank. We've seen lots of funds being raised for the larger organizations, but local food banks really need the help as well. Support us. You are Rotarians, and we receive support from Rotarians, not typically outside of Rotary. So share your network and connections with us. Donate funding, and if you have any questions, go to our website, learn more. Feel free always to contact me. And then finally, and this is something that's really important because we're all Rotarians, and we all have great networks, so be an advocate. Contact your local representatives. Ask them to support hunger relief efforts, and then also advocate among your friends and associates to help provide better hunger relief. And that's it. So if we have time for Q&A, great. But if not, that's my contact information.
Great. Well, we do have a couple questions. The first one was about a global grant or the district grant. If there's anything else the other clubs are doing. I typed a little bit on chat that our club is participating in the 5030 grant. Can you just talk a little bit about what that grant is?
Yes. So the global grant, this is something I'm working with Jeff Brennan, who's a District 5030 Foundation chair. And it is money that the district has been collecting and earmarking from a number of clubs in the district. Those funds are going to be used to help support refrigerated capacity in hunger relief organizations like senior programs and a number of other programs in King County and South Snohomish County. So as a Rotary, and this is the first time I've been involved in a Rotary Global Grant, but those funds are going to be matched. So we're getting money from local clubs. We've got a global partner out of Guatemala that's signed on to it as well. And then we're submitting the application, signed off on it yesterday, so we should be submitting it today or tomorrow, I think. But those funds, so what those will be used for, the process that we use for our capacity grants is there's a super straightforward online form. It's basically a Google form. So we're going to send a link out to the clubs when we get notified of what funding is available. And clubs can send that out to, if they've got food bank partners that would like to apply for funding. And it's for refrigeration. It could be if it's a meal program, it could be for stoves, it could be for ovens or other things, but it's just helping hunger relief organizations deal with perishable product and getting it to those in need.
That's great. And then we have one more question. It's regarding the statistics that you referred to earlier. Are those statistics based on Harvest Against Hunger on self-reporting, or are there other records being kept?
When it comes to statistics related to hunger, or
statistics based on how much Harvest Against Hunger is helping individuals in the community.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
So what that comes from is those are numbers from Washington State Department of Agriculture Food Assistance Program. And since we as an organization don't have a food bank where we're distributing directly to individuals, what we take is that cumulative data because we know that the food that we bring in is distributed across the state. And so those numbers, the statistics of number of people served, comes from WSDA's Food Assistance Program, and it's a broad across Washington state number, those statistics.
That's great. Well, I think that's our time today, David.
Okay.
In your honor, we're donating 1,500 pounds of food to Harvest Against Hunger. We actually do that for all of our speakers as our speaker gift at Bellevue Rotary. So thank you so much for your talk today and getting us up to speed about what's happening in our community with hunger relief. Next week's speaker is Dr. John Tomkowiak, who is in the College of Medicine at the Washington State University. And he'll be giving us an update of what's happening at the school. Thank you so much to Paul Lawally for hosting our pre-meeting social today, Jeffrey for running this meeting in the background, Joyce for our invocation, Dean as our Sergeant at Arms, and to all of you who have participated, I miss you. I can't wait to see you again and have a wonderful week. Thank you. We're adjourned.